I used to think betrayal only came from people you barely knew. That if someone was close enough, like family, like a best friend, they couldn't possibly hurt you that deeply. I was wrong. Pain doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes wearing a familiar smile and calling you sis. My name's Kara, and this story starts 3 years ago, the day I introduced my best friend, Tessa, to my then boyfriend, Leo. Tessa and I had been inseparable since high school. We knew each other's darkest secrets, spent holidays together, even moved to the same city after college, just to keep the bond going. We used to joke that we were soulmates who just happened to be born into different families. So when I met Leo and things got serious, introducing him to Tessa felt like the most natural thing in the world. She played her part perfectly. Supportive, sweet, never too flirty, but always charming enough to make Leo like her. I remember being proud of how well they got along. I thought it meant my life was coming together. Boyfriend, best friend, a circle of trust that felt unbreakable. But the truth was already slipping through the cracks. At first, it was little things. Inside jokes between them I didn't remember being part of. Leo knowing things I hadn't told him yet. Things I'd only shared with Tessa. Texts between them at weird hours. I chalked it up to paranoia. After all, jealousy wasn't my thing. I trusted them both, until I couldn't anymore. It all came crashing down one Thursday night. I'd left work early because I wasn't feeling well. I didn't even tell anyone. I was coming home early. Maybe that's why fate played its hand that day. I walked into my apartment and heard laughter, Leo's and Tessa's. My stomach dropped before I even made it to the living room. There they were, sitting too close on the couch. No space, no guilt, just comfort. Too much comfort. They froze when they saw me. Tessa's face turned white. Leo stammered out something about helping her through a breakup. But the air was already thick with something I couldn't unhear or unsee. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just left. The betrayal sat like ice in my chest. It wasn't just about losing a boyfriend. It was losing the one person I thought would never lie to me. And the worst part, neither of them chased after me. I moved out that weekend, blocked them both. I didn't need an explanation. Silence told me everything I needed to know. For a while, I spiraled. Therapy helped, as did time. I poured myself into work, travel, and slowly, cautiously, I let new people in. One of those people was Aaron, someone who didn't try too hard to impress, didn't rush to fill the silence, and never made me question my place in his life. He didn't try to fix me. He just stayed. 2 years later, he proposed under the cherry blossoms in Kyoto. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it was real, and I said yes, I'd healed, or at least I thought I had. But karma has a way of circling back in ways you never expect. When Aaron and I started planning the engagement party, we hired a catering company recommended by his sister. We wanted something elegant but low-key, just family and close friends, in a rooftop venue downtown. I barely looked at the staffing list. I trusted the agency. That was until the walkthrough 2 weeks before the event. I arrived early. The staff was already doing setup, and there she was, Tessa. In a black server's uniform, hair tied back, eyes down. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I saw him, Leo, in the same black uniform, rolling in a cart of champagne flutes. I blinked, wondering if it was a hallucination, but no. There they were, the people who betrayed me, now setting tables at my engagement party. My first instinct was to cancel them, storm out, call the agency and demand replacements. But something inside me said no, not this time. Let them serve. Let them see what real love looks like. Let them be reminded of what they lost and who I became without them. I didn't say a word. Just walked past them with my head high. They looked stunned. Tessa's mouth opened as if to speak, but I gave her nothing, not even a glance, because I wasn't that broken girl anymore. I was the bride-to-be. and they were on my payroll. The days leading up to the engagement party felt like I was holding onto a delicious secret. Not in a petty way, but in a way that felt I didn't plan this. I didn't search them out. But life had offered me a full circle moment, and I was going to let it play out, gracefully. I didn't tell Aaron either. He didn't know about Tessa and Leo, not in detail. He knew I'd been hurt badly, that I had to cut ties with someone I once called family, but I'd never given him names. There wasn't a need, until now. But even then, I kept it to myself. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my story, my voice. The day of the party, I arrived a little early again. I wanted to see the final setup and centerpieces before the guests arrived. Everything looked beautiful. White linen tables, strings of soft lights. Above us, floral arrangements in peach and ivory. It was classy, understated, warm. The kind of evening I used to dream about. And there they were. Tessa was laying out the hors d'oeuvres. Leo stood stiffly by the drinks table, scanning the room like he wanted to vanish. For a moment, I just watched them work. There was no sign of the arrogance they once wore. Tessa looked thinner, older, like she hadn't slept much in a long time. Leo's face was blank, tired. Gone was the charm, the smug confidence. These weren't the people who'd stolen something from me. They were just people now, people with consequences. One of the event managers walked over, giving me an update. She mentioned the catering company had been struggling lately. A few. Contracts lost. Some staff turnover? That's when it hit me. This wasn't a one-time gig for Tessa and Leo. This was their job now. They were regular staff, and they were working my party. As guests began to arrive, I smiled more genuinely than I had in years. I greeted friends, hugged relatives, introduced Aaron to everyone he hadn't met yet. We were surrounded by love. The real kind. The kind that didn't hide knives behind its back. At one point during the night, I caught Tessa watching us from across the room. She wasn't trying to hide it. Her eyes lingered on Aaron's hand in mine, on the way he leaned toward me when he spoke, on the way my laughter came freely. I saw it hit her. That maybe she hadn't just betrayed a friend. Maybe she'd burned the bridge to something much bigger. A life she couldn't replicate. I excused myself and made my way to the staff corner. I didn't want drama, but I needed this moment. Tessa saw me coming. Her hands froze mid-fold on a napkin. Leo glanced over and stiffened. I stopped a few feet, away. I kept my voice low, calm. "You two doing okay?" I asked. Tessa blinked, unsure whether I was being sarcastic. I wasn't. I meant it. She nodded once, slowly. "I wasn't sure if you recognized me," I continued, "but I saw your names on the staffing list days ago." Tessa swallowed hard. "Kara, I didn't know it was your party, I swear. If I had, you would have." "Skipped out?" I tilted my head. "Like you did on our friendship." Her lips trembled. She had no excuse ready. Leo remained quiet behind her, eyes on the floor. "I don't need an apology," I said. "Not anymore. I'm not here to rehash anything." I looked toward the room where laughter echoed, where Aaron stood talking with my cousins, beaming. "Like the man who won the lottery." "I just wanted you both to see what healing looks like," I said softly. "What choosing the right people looks like." Tessa's eyes welled up. "You look happy, really happy." "I am. And I meant it." I turned and walked away, not waiting for a reply. I didn't need their approval, their regret, or their guilt. I just needed them to see. To understand that their betrayal hadn't broken me. It had freed me. Later that night, after the cake was cut and the lights dimmed to a warm golden glow, Aaron pulled me aside. "Did I see you talking to one of the servers earlier?" he asked. I nodded. "That was someone I used to know, long time ago." He studied my face, sensing something unspoken. "Old friend?" "Something like that," I said. He didn't press further. He just took my hand and kissed it. That night, as I looked around the rooftop full of people celebrating our future, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not pride. Peace. I had risen, and they had watched. After the engagement party, something unexpected started to happen. A few of our mutual acquaintances, the ones who had once hovered in Tessa's orbit, began reaching out to me. They'd seen photos from the event, seen me glowing in my ivory silk dress beside Aaron, seen the rooftop filled with laughter and celebration. One of them even messaged, "You look so radiant. Whatever you're doing, it's working." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. But it made me think about how far I'd come. How far removed I now was from the woman who once cried on her bathroom floor, asking why the people she loved most had stabbed her in the back. Tessa didn't reach out. Neither did Leo. I didn't expect them to. They'd had their moment to acknowledge the damage they caused, and honestly, I didn't need anything more from them. Weeks passed. Wedding planning kicked into full gear. Aaron was an angel, patient, involved, sweetly opinionated about cake flavors. We toured venues, picked out a string quartet, and even decided to write our own vows. Then, one evening, while curled up on the couch browsing through floral arrangements, I got a message request. It was Tessa. Her name sat there on my screen, like a ghost I didn't summon. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. "Cara, I know I have no right to message you. I saw the photos. You looked beautiful. You looked free. I've been thinking about you ever since the party. I don't want to intrude. But I needed to say, I'm sorry. Truly sorry." I let the message sit unread for a few days. I didn't want to respond out of impulse or emotion. I didn't owe her anything. Not forgiveness, not a conversation. But part of me did feel something. Not anger anymore, not even sadness. Just a strange kind of distance, like remembering someone from a dream. I eventually typed back a short response. "I appreciate the message. I hope you're doing okay. Take care." That was it. She replied once more. Just a thank you. And that was the end. Or so I thought. A few months later, I saw her again. Not in person, online. One of those estate liquidation pages had posted a listing. Vintage furniture, old jewelry, antique dishes. And in the middle of the images, I saw it. The bracelet. My grandmother's bracelet. The one that was supposed to be passed down to me. The one Tessa had ended up with because her mother, my aunt, had insisted she deserved something special. I hadn't fought for it. I didn't want to beg for family memories. But seeing it now on an auction site stung more than I expected. There was no doubt it was hers. The delicate gold links, the blue enamel clasp with tiny forget-me-nots. I had once held it in my hands as a child, promising myself I'd wear it on my wedding day. Now it had a starting bid of $40. I called the auction house pretending to be a collector of vintage heirlooms. They confirmed it was from a client going through a complex divorce and selling everything to cover legal fees. Tessa, she was selling everything, including the one thing I once thought she valued more than our friendship. I placed a private bid, paid double what it was worth. The Satalub item was mine within hours. When the box arrived at my door, I sat down with it in my lap for a long time. Then I opened it. Inside, nestled in velvet, was the bracelet. It looked smaller now, like it had aged. Or maybe I had just grown. Still, I cried when I held it. Not out of loss, but of something deeper. A full circle moment that no longer hurt. I wore it at our wedding, wrapped around my wrist, glinting under soft white lights. It shimmered like something reborn. My grandmother would have smiled, maybe even whispered, "You've earned this in ways no one can see." As I danced with Aaron, bracelet tight against my skin, I realized something important. I hadn't just moved on. I had rewritten the ending. Married. Life didn't begin with fireworks or grand epiphanies. It started with quiet mornings, burnt toast, and Aaron humming off-key while brushing his teeth. It was exactly what I needed. Stability, warmth, and the peaceful rhythm of two people building a life together. Still, every so often, the past would drift into my mind. Not as a wound, but as a memory that no longer had the power to ache. 1. Day, about a year into our marriage, I was at a local art fair browsing pottery when I ran into someone unexpected. Leo. He looked thinner, older somehow, not in a physical way, but in the way someone carries disappointment around, like a weight strapped to their back. He hesitated when he saw me. "Kara," he said, voice tentative. I turned to him slowly. "Leo, Wow, you look good. Married life suits you." I gave a polite nod. "Thanks." There was a pause. Then he blurted out, "I'm sorry." I didn't reply right away. I let the silence do the heavy lifting. I didn't know how much I messed things up until it was too late. He continued, "With you. With everything." I tilted my head slightly. "You didn't just mess things up. You made choices. So did Tessa. And now you both have to live with them." He nodded, eyes lowering. "I know." A part of me wanted to ask why. Why he threw away what we had. Why he didn't have the decency to admit it instead of lying for months. But I realized something in that moment. I didn't care anymore. Closure isn't something you get from people. It's something you create for yourself. So I just said, "I hope you're doing better." He gave a faint, grateful smile. "You always were the kindest person I knew." I left after that. Didn't look back. A few weeks later, I got an anonymous envelope in the mail, no return address. Inside was a small note card with 5 words. "You always deserved better. T." There was no doubt in my mind it was from Tessa. I sat there, holding the card, and for a brief moment, I imagined her handwriting it. Maybe after a long night, maybe after finally facing all the things she'd refused to feel for years, but I didn't reach out, because by now, I had everything I needed. Aaron and I bought a little house on the edge of town. Nothing flashy, but with a big backyard and a cozy attic, I turned into a reading room. We hung the bracelet in a glass case, next to a photo of my grandmother, not because it was valuable, but because of the journey it represented. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in tiny moments, in forgiveness that asks for nothing, in letting go without needing revenge, in reclaiming pieces of your story and wearing them like armor. One evening, while watching the sunset from our porch, Aaron reached over and took my hand. "Do you ever think about them?" he asked gently. "Sometimes," I replied. "But not in the way I used to." He nodded. "You're stronger than you know that?" I smiled. "I know it now." And as the sky turned amber and the world quieted around us, I realized the best part of the story wasn't that I got even, it was that I got free.